As survivors of the Maui wildfires are picking up the pieces, some are getting calls from real estate agents offering to sell their property. The realtors claim they want to help, but many Lahaina residents see the offers as predatory and worry that new developments could make their home unrecognizable. I want to bring in Brad Milkey, host of the Start Here podcast, for more on this. Brad, you looked into these reports of realtors looking to sell property on Maui. What did you find?
We found it's almost unavoidable right now to not get a call or a message from one of these real estate agents. We spoke to a real estate agent in Maui. She works in real estate, but she got a call from a mainlander who probably thinks of her as a colleague, basically saying, hey, now seems like a great time for us to start buying up all these lots around downtown Lahaina. He even mentioned that, this might be a good opportunity to lowball certain buildings or certain properties that have burnt down because people were probably worried about having cash on hand right now. It's going to take a while to rebuild. And in the meantime, the land could be worth less as all these people kind of flee the area. And so that, she said, enraged her because she's seeing this happen to more and more locals to Lahaina, where people are cold calling them saying, hey, can we please sell your land for you?
And how are residents responding to these offers?
I mean, incredibly insulted for the most part. So we spoke to a woman named Tammy Kalilalau. She is native Hawaiian. She's lived on Maui her entire life. And she described, she was living in downtown Lahaina for the last several years, and her home is burned to the ground. She and her husband slept on an overpass for 2 days without food until they were able to reunite with her daughters. Once they got to her daughter's house, she was able to log into Facebook and check her messages, people saying, are you all right? Are you alive? And there, among those messages, is a real estate developer saying, hey, we'd like to sell your land if that's something you'd be interested in. This is 48 hours after the fire.
Wow.
And so this is the sort of thing that's happening to more and more people. And she says it's enraging because it already feels like Hawaiians have had to fight for their land so much that now it feels like people are really trying to strip it out from underneath them at their most vulnerable moments.
And talk a little bit more about that, how Native Hawaiians have been already fighting for a while to try to keep their land.
Yeah, well, that's, our own Eva Pilgrim did an incredible series of stories where she described how, it is difficult for a lot of Native Hawaiians to build on the land right now. There is a process for making that happen, but it happens so slowly. Meanwhile, you see these more wealthy developers in these groups able to build around the island's chains, ad nauseum. And so you've had people feeling like this land is slowly it's been more and more difficult to find it their own. And so now people like Tammy are saying, I don't even know what Lahaina is going to look like when we're able to rebuild. Why wouldn't these developers, if they're able to get their hands on this land, build a new fancy hotel in Lahaina? They know they got a tourist area, right? Build a fancy hotel instead of the old motel. Build a luxury apartment condo building instead of the current apartment buildings. And she said, think about when Disneyland opens up, all the land around Disneyland becomes more valuable. She thinks that's what will happen and actually make it more and more difficult for people who just want to keep their lifestyle there in Lahaina because, she sees that becoming a big problem.
I actually stayed there a few years ago, and the whole feel of it is that it is very quaint. It's very homey. You don't stay in luxury hotels there. Right. You stay in somewhere that feels a bit more like a common apartment, and you enjoy that community feel. So I can understand the concern. Have officials there proposed any kind of solutions to this to try to preserve that kind of local feel?
Yeah, I mean, as this has sort of become a bigger issue, and as you're just hearing this from so many people, the governor has actually gotten involved and says that he's contemplating the idea of a moratorium on home sales in the near future. So he hasn't given a timeline on that, but he has called this outright stealing of land. That is how he has described this, as people trying to steal land to, buy low and sell high. And so that is an option out there. We asked Tammy, how she would feel about that. She said, absolutely. That's what I'm looking for right now, is somebody to kind of protect this rather than letting as the scavengers, as she calls them, come to the island.
But are residents worried at all that then that takes away their ability to sell their own property after already going through all of this?
Yeah, and that's almost what some of the real estate developers have been thinking about, is how, there's a question of how much money are residents going to get. Some residents are going to be concerned about, can I last the next few years as this is all being rebuilt? If I owned an apartment building and that's how I made my money, when am I going to be able to make money again? And so that is a concern for some of the residents. But in general, the ones who are just kind of living their own lives are like, I'd rather see this stay kind of, in the family, as it were, than just all of a sudden be up for sale where everyone's selling their lots around you. Because then even if people sell their lots around you, you feel like, well, now I can't afford this place that I live in.
Yeah, or maybe you won't recognize it.
That's right.
Brad, thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.